Hey, everybody. I hope and pray that you're doing well today as we come to our word from the Word. And today that word is kindling. Kindling. Now, sometimes you see you got to get that fire started with just a little bit of kindling. And then once it starts, then you can continue to add on more wood and more fuel so that the fire will burn hotter and hotter. Now, as we come to the book of Nahum, now we're going to see that God's wrath, first thing, we're going to see God's wrath and what it's coming, how it's coming to Nineveh and to the Assyrians. And he is saying, look, it's a word of hope for his people, the people of Judah. It's a word of hope for them because they can see that their enemies will be destroyed. And it is definitely something terrible to be on the receiving end of God's judgment. Now, as we look at this, I can't help but think again to relate it to our times, right? I mean, it's not the same situation, but as we look around, sometimes we can feel like we are the ones, especially today, the church and God fearing, um, Bible believing people are being put down further and further and being oppressed more and more, and it's only going to get worse. And so, with that, we can still look ahead with that not just a ray of hope, but with a bright, shining star of hope in Jesus Christ. But know that the kindling has already begun, that the wrath of God is only going to kind of simmer so long before all of a sudden it's going to engulf everything and everyone who remains. Today, look and see what he is telling Nineveh, what's going to happen to them. Starting in of chapter 1, starting in verse 2 in the book of Nahum, God is jealous, and the Lord avenges. The Lord avenges and is furious. The Lord will take vengeance on his adversaries, and he reserves wrath for his enemies. The Lord is slow to anger and great in power, and will not at all acquit the wicked. The Lord has his way in the whirlwind and in the storm, and the clouds are the dust of his feet. He rebukes the sea and makes it dry, and dries up all the rivers. Bashan and Carmel wither, and the flower of Lebanon wilts. The mountains quake before him, the hills melt, and the earth heaves at his presence. Yes, the world and all who dwell in it. Who can stand before his indignation? And who can endure the fierceness of his anger? His fury is poured out like fire, and the rocks are thrown down by him. Now, just to think about the wrath of God being poured out like fire. Now, you can only imagine what this would have sounded like to Nineveh as speaking through Nahum, as he's saying, hey, look, this is what's going to happen. And can you imagine hearing that the God of Israel, the God that you've heard about, that back in the past, we were talking about a little bit Sunday, that, one of the most famous stories in the Old Testament is Israel, the Israelites crossing over, or through, I should say, crossing through the Red Sea. And that is one of those things that just always stands out when you look back through Israel's history, is how it really began, coming out of Egypt, and how it all started. And then making their way, not just in the wilderness and God protecting them, but then when they came into the promised land, the way that I'll get my words together in a minute, the way that he made them where they were able to take possession of the land, but yeah, they falter, and you see then the people had to be in captivity there in their land, then they get shoved out of their land. And I mean, there's all these things back and forth that go on throughout their history, but they always see this ray of hope. And I said that a minute ago, is a little bit more than a ray of hope, but they always have this remnant that is remains, that there is a faithful that will be faithful to the end. And so they get to see that God's wrath will be poured out on their enemies. Think about how many times the enemies of Israel rejoiced in the fact that they were victorious. We talked about this before in previous previous prophets' messages that they were just tools in the hands of God, that He was using them as tools of chastening and tools of discipline for His own people. But make no mistake, the wickedness and evil of the enemies, you heard what I just read, is in no way would He acquit them all. In no way was He going to let them slide. And rest assured that today in our world, God's not letting the evil ones get by with anything. Their time is coming. See, in that sense, the kindling fire has already begun. And it began a long time ago. Let's make sure we make that clear. It began a long time ago because as evil increases more and more, so that fire and that burning wrath of God is only going to wait so long. Now we look at it and we say, God, what are you waiting for? But we also read that He is slow to anger. And I mean, not just slow like you and I would be on our best day. He's very, very slow to anger. Oh, but when He gets angry, it's, so a lot of times we'll think about the Hulk and that transformation that he makes. It's no transformation like that for God. But when He pours out His wrath, that's something we can't even imagine. So today, I want you to look at it two ways. If you're a believer and you're faithful in the Word of God and you're staying faithful to God, then you can look at this as a ray of hope. You can look at it as that hope that's in the future, that we know that, look, God is not letting these people get away with anything. All will pay a price. All will stand before God. And if you're one of those who doesn't believe, or if you're one that's opposing the will of God and coming against Him and even participating and promoting in the evil of this world, you may think you're winning today. You may have even won a battle for today. But as the old saying goes, you may have won the battle, but you're going to lose the war. But I can tell you this, it's already been written. You've already lost the war. And you will pay the price in eternity in hell. But it doesn't have to be that way. You don't have to spend eternity in hell. And for believers, those people that you love and you may not agree with, pray for them so that they don't have to spend eternity in hell. Pray that you have a way that God will give you an opportunity to share with them so that they don't have to experience the overwhelming wrath of God. Today, I could speak on that for a long time, but just for today, let's take this to heart, that the fire is already kindling. It's already begun. When will it engulf all things? And will you be ready? God bless you, and I pray you have a great, great day.